And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 8 of the Sling'N Led podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And joining us tonight is Tim Kelly of Apache Solutions. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for being here, man. Tim, you are a firearms instructor based out of North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
So why don't you tell the folks at home and those listening on the podcast a little bit about yourself and your training that you offer with Apache Solutions, and after that, why don't you tell us who the hell you are?
Okay, sounds good. Well, my name is Tim Kelly. I'm the owner of Apache Solutions LLC, based out of Yadkinville, North Carolina. If you don't know where that's at, which you probably don't, it's near Winston-Salem, about 30 minutes out, and about an hour or so from Charlotte. So just a small town. We teach everything from private sessions to concealed carry. We teach a bunch of NRA courses, a lot of our own concept courses, and recently we teach a lot of handgun combatives courses. So that's kind of it as far as what I do with Apache.
So okay. What about Tim, like the person? So we're trying to ask dudes questions that they're not going to get asked on every other podcast they go on. So as much as you care to, like, we're not asking for your social security number and your wife's hair color or nothing else, unless you want to tell us, but tell us who you are as a person, man. What do you do with your spare time that's not gun related, all 5 minutes of it? And what are you into other than this life?
So, man, I guess first and foremost, I'm a husband. I'm a father of a beautiful little girl, and I got another one on the way. Let's see, man. When I have some free time, I love to be outside. Period.
Yep.
If it's outdoors, I'm in. Count me in. Just in the summertime, we like to go kayaking or something like that, camping, hiking, that sort of thing. Yeah. And hunting season, when it comes around, that's where you'll find me. So that's pretty much who I am in a nutshell, man. I try to spend a lot of time, as much time as I possibly can with my family and with my friends and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's about it. Just a regular guy.
Really cool, man. So, little background, little history. Tim and I met at you brought up handgun combative, so we should talk about Dave, obviously, right? Praise be unto Dave.
Yeah.
But Tim and I met on the range as students. So we get asked all the time, how do we vet instructors, right? And one of my key things for helping vet instructors is you should see those dudes on the line in other guys' classes, right? And I was pleasured to have met him in that environment. And, first of all, I was impressed. Obviously, we hit it off as people, but beyond that, it's good to see dudes in that training arena coming out and taking other people's classes. Anybody who thinks they've got the box checked and they don't have to, I'm good. I don't have to do this anymore. I've got the I word in front of my name, so I don't have to show up and learn anything. They're probably pretty all fucked up. So it's good to see guys out doing stuff like that. But Tim impressed me right away with his, and you get like a minute 30 of skirt smoke, dude, and that's all you're gonna get from me. So you'll be all right. You can get through the rest. You impressed me with your enthusiasm, dude. To be honest, you're the only guy I've seen at a gun class that jogged to the line. Like, he literally jogged to the line. I don't know, like on day 2, 2, 3 in the afternoon when everybody's ass is dragging, Tim is jogging to the line with his like man purse full of magazines.
It's a Gucci bag. It's a Gucci bag.
There was some okay. Anyway. But dude was
Indiana Jones has one.
That's right.
It's a satchel.
Dude was for sure on point when it came to 100% enthusiasm for what it was that we were there to do, and he was soaking in the info. And him and I both had trained with Dave more than that just one time previously, and yet there's always something else you can get out of it. So while we're on the Dave subject, I decided life priority wise not to spend the money and come up to the one and only friggin' handgun and combatives instructor cert. I never even put my name in the hat, and I now regret that endlessly. So let me live vicariously through you a little bit. Tell me all about it, like for the next 11 hours. Please.
I knew you were just going to cut to the chase and be like, okay,
yeah,
how was it? Tell me
How
everything
was it?
you know. Well, first of all, that's all classified, and
Well, fuck.
can't really tell you any more than the fact that it was a 40-hour course, and that's about it. No, man, it was awesome. You guys have a pretty extensive training background. As for me, man, let me reel things back a little bit. When I first got out of the Marine Corps and started into this industry and learning more about training and getting involved with that, man, I seen the NRA side of things, and where I was at in my current area, it really wasn't what I was looking for. I needed something a little bit more. And so when I found Dave, I just took off, man. I fell in love with the content. I thought it was great. I loved the way he taught. He inspired me. He was a huge mentor for me. So I basically followed his every move and watched what he did. And there's a lot to learn from Dave, man. He's got a ton of, I don't have to tell you anything. I mean, he's got a ton of great content out there and a vast experience behind himself. Now, I haven't had a whole lot of training with Dave. I had one class prior to the one that I had taken with you. And that was kind of my thought whenever I decided I was going to send off that packet and, I'll put my name in the hat. Sure. No, that was not my mentality. My mentality was, I really don't know about this. My wife was the one that kicked me in the tail and said, send the check in. Send the check in. The worst they can do is tell you no. You worked hard for this. You're working hard at what you're doing now. You really, really want this, don't you? And I said, yeah, I do. So I put myself out there, and I was very, very surprised to get selected. I really was. And when I got there,
I'm not at all.
I was even more surprised. No, man, I wished I could paint you a picture of the quality of instructors or the quality of students that were there at this course, man. It was, we all laughed about it but at the end of it, because Dave has a real, I don't know how to put this. He had a really awesome way of hand selecting each individual person, because they were all awesome students, great instructors. Everyone knew how to teach. Everyone there knew what they were doing on the line, man. Excellent shooters. It was probably the most elite group of people I've ever trained with. And you know how you go to some of these classes, man, there's always that one dude. There's always that one.
Yep.
There was not that one dude at this course,
No.
man. I mean, there wasn't. I could sit down without any trouble, sit down and have an awesome conversation with every single person in that class. I did. That was my single biggest takeaway from that course, man. It wasn't some crazy cool secret code that Dave was to teach you to make you a better instructor. It was the camaraderie that you built in this group, man. It was the biggest takeaway for sure.
It doesn't surprise me at all. The caliber of students on the class level that he attracts is high. I mean, I'm honored to have had him on previously and interviewed him and stuff. I also consider him a mentor, and he's a good, solid dude. So it doesn't surprise me at all that his instructor candidates were high quality. And candidly, how many of you dudes, and were there any girls? Were there girls?
No, there's no females. There was 19 of us.
19 total.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not because only 19 people sent in paperwork, right? Like I know for sure. I know for sure of that.
I don't want to throw a number out there. I know Dave told me, but there was a pretty large number of people.
Yeah, that's unsurprising. How many passed? How many walked away certified?
I mean, the people that were hand selected for the class you're pretty much the instructors that passed. So I don't know how else to put that.
Right. No. That it was kind of how I thought it was going to be. Was he was going to put the work into people he thought were worth it in the first place.
Yeah.
And it just occurs to me now for somebody listening on podcast and who has no idea who the hell we are. What we're talking about is the Handgun Combatives. Gentleman by the name of Dave Spalding runs a training company, Handgun Combatives, and he did an instructor training cert. Handguncombatives.com. Check him out, YouTube and all that stuff. If you're like gun podcast click and you have no idea what the hell we're talking about, look that up and start there. So you're one of friggin' 20, well, probably Bucky, right? So 21 people in the whole world who can teach that curriculum, which is a huge honor.
Yes.
It really is a huge honor. And
absolutely.
I'm certain it will be good for your business model. And honestly, the relationship that I'm sure you were able to cultivate with your fellow students up there, and I'm sure Dave's not done helping you, right? So that none of that is bad for the future of Apache Solutions, and I'm really glad to see that you did it.
It's
That's
nothing
awesome.
but good for us, man. I'm stoked about it. It's awesome.
So I've got in the chat here, Eric Tweet. Looks like he was out there with you. Everyone meshed and came together.
One of my fellow instructors, yeah.
Okay, sweet. So what's up, Eric? Thanks for being in the chat.
Eric owns Archetype of the Gun. He's Northern Illinois or something like that. He's probably cussing at me right now for saying that, but he's up near Chicago. Awesome dude. He's got a really good course, as a matter of fact, that we've been following quite a bit.
I just listened to him on a recent podcast, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember who the hell he was on with, but it was Civilian Carry Radio or PNS or somebody he was just on, and I just heard him, so that's cool. Yeah. He's doing this thing, so he's happy to hear we're talking about him. That's cool. Hey, I mean, Eric, come on our podcast, bro, one of these days. Back to Tim. Tim, what had you been teaching besides you? I know you had NRA curriculum. But besides NRA, what had you been teaching prior to Handgun Combatives? What were you doing? Your own curriculum, POI development.
Our biggest, I guess our biggest selling class was just our one-on-one sessions. I said, look, if people need to train, they really need to train. So what can I do? What can I set up to really help people throughout the throughout their week or something like that, so that they can learn something new, learn a new skill, take it home or take it to their local gun range and go and practice that skill. So we started doing 1-hour sessions where you would, call and book a 1-hour session. Your first 1-hour session ends up being about an hour and a half, because I like to talk a whole lot. And I'm trying to feel out who the student is and what their purpose is, what their drive is, and that way I can prioritize them as a student. So we didn't just let anybody in for training, especially for one-on-one sessions. It was more for, the people that were really, really serious about it. So we started off teaching 1-hour sessions, teach them a skill. They would go home, practice it in dry fire, or go to the range, practice it, and then come back the following week and they'd test out on it and move on to a next skill. And man, that has been working great. It's been awesome. And then when we started teaching concealed carry classes, man, I don't know about you guys, but in our community, concealed carry is like, I don't know, there's this stigma that's like, okay, you want to go learn how to shoot a handgun, you go and take a concealed carry class. But to me, I was like, I don't have a whole lot of experience in the civilian world, man, but that sounds ass backwards. That is not the way it's supposed to work. You should go and learn how to manipulate a handgun first, really learn it inside and out, and then go and take a concealed carry course.
It's like taking driver's ed. It's like fucking taking driver's ed and then being like, you know what? Now that I'm done with driver's ed, let's learn how to drive a car. Like, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. I know.
Well,
So,
but I mean, in the same respect, you can't expect everybody to just say, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense," and completely change their mindset and say, teach me your ways, sensei. It doesn't work like that, dude. You've got to be able to help tactfully guide people in the right direction and explain to that student that says, "Hey man, I want to sign up for a concealed carry class." All right, man, how much handgun experience you got? Well, I grew up shooting shotguns and rifles my whole life. How hard can it be to shoot a pistol? Well, maybe you should consider coming out and, taking a one-on-one session or something like that. You have to deal with that student in a different way, because if not, they're just going to go and they're going to pay Joe Schmo, the student mill down the road, and he's just going to hand them a certificate and they're going to walk, and you're not going to get anywhere with that student, right? So I guess the hardest part for me was trying to really build quality concealed carry classes with quality students in them. And, in the first year, man, I won't lie, the first year we probably turned more students away doing that than we did bringing them in. And it was just a trial and error thing of like, hey, sorry, but if you can't come in here and shoot this standard, this is the way we teach. I understand that, Joe Schmo down the road has a little bit more of a loose standard down there. So, and he'll give you the class basically as long as you know how to point and shoot a gun. I'm just not going to do that, So that was a tough class to build up. And then after that, it was our everyday carry course. That was our signature course. The everyday carry course was created because after you've taken a concealed carry class and after you've taken all these different, one-on-one sessions and maybe a basics of pistol shooting course to the NRA or something like that, where do you go from there and how do you apply that in the practical application of an everyday armed citizen? So what are the skills that you're going to need to, what's the next step? So we developed the everyday carry course, and man, it went over really well. So we've had, I think 60 or 70 students go through so far. Yeah. That's about it, man.
So the chat is on fire over here. We got Apache Frank.
Nice.
He says you
I know
suck
I got people texting me and everything else.
Frank says you suck at life and your standard isn't worth a shit.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not what he said at all. I'm happy. We got Chuck Mumford in here. Thank you, Chuck, for Chuck hosted the class that we met at down there in Virginia. So that's cool. Adventure camping. Eric says permit mills are his trigger warning for a safe space. Yeah. See, Chuck and I are in the same spot on this whole thing. He just said he's kicking himself for not putting his name in the hat for that too. I guess, we'll just either have to beg Dave to do it again and devalue the cert a little bit, or, we'll just have to come up with our own, I guess, Chuck. It's up to you and I. Don Palmer, man, awesome. Adventure camping. Thank you guys all for being here so much.
Nice.
So love having an active chat. Please subscribe and hang out. We'll try to have cool people on like Tim. TJ, what do you got, man? I saw your eyes light up when he said you have to test out of the cert or of the standard to get into the next class.
No, I first of all, I think that's a fantastic approach to it. So bravo for thinking outside the box on that one. You always see it on social media where people start talking about training standards, or you have to meet a certain benchmark before you can take this class or graduate from this class. And you always see, arguably the FUDs of the world start, intelligible screeching as they freak out. But good on you for maintaining that type of a standard. Not only speaks to you as an instructor, but also to the level of excellence you demand from your students. So with that, is there what type of development went into figuring out the standards for like, let's say you go through, a class, just the first hour, right? I've booked a class with you. You came up with a standard to pass when we come back around the following week. How much development and time went into that? Or did you just kind of grab something off the shelf and say, you know what, this actually does make sense? Or is this all like homebrew type stuff?
No, man. I think our concealed carry class and our everyday carry class, everything started off as base as you can possibly can. So if you were one of my first classes, sorry, yeah, you were part of that study phase, and we started to tighten our standards more and more and more as time went on. But you got to be careful about doing that. I mean, really, you have people of all different shapes and sizes and all different types of experience levels and that sort of thing. So you can't necessarily say, hey, you've got to, basically be able to pass this concealed carry class. You've got to be able to, shoot a 3-round fade back clean or something like that. You can't basically say you have to hit all your hits on a 3x5 index card, all the way back to 25 yards and make it that tight on them or something like that. You've got to kind of gradually grow a little bit. At least that's how we did it. So we started off on the regular traditional B27 for concealed carry, and keeping it inside the 7 ring. And then it was this, all right, but it's not just about the target itself either. It's about the guns they bring to class too. You had people bringing anything from, their regular semi-automatic handgun to grandpa's old single action 22 revolver that only fires on, one cylinder. Like it's barely making it through the class, So we had to got rid of 22 long rifle altogether completely. They said, if you're going to take the concealed carry class, you can't use a 22 long rifle. And for many reasons, that just being one of them. Another reason would be that they just don't provide me as an instructor with enough, I don't know. I'm not confident that they truly understand the fundamentals. That you don't really have to have any type of recoil management. They don't really, they just need to line up their sights and be able to press the trigger, and that's it. The 22 is really not a whole lot to it. So I would rather know for a fact that they know and understand how to use a handgun than they're just blindly aiming this teeny little pistol downrange. And the single action revolver just became a giant pain in the tail. And if you're applying for a concealed carry handgun permit, I didn't see the use in a single action revolver. That's just my opinion. There's a lot of people out there that are really, really in disagreement with me, and that's perfectly fine. They can teach it their way in their classes. But for me, we have a higher standard. It's just the way we're at. And the same with our everyday carry course. The more and more we grew, the more stuff we would add to it, the more and more stuff that I would learn through taking other courses in my studies and stuff like that. The more and more we tighten the standards on the everyday carry course, we would just make it different every single time, and it was part of the enjoyment process, I guess.
That's fantastic. So, would I be correct in making the deduction that when you were coming up with your standards, you were trying, at least there in the beginning, you were trying to see how low you could set the bar at first before you realized you could start setting the bar higher with additional training and follow-on instruction?
Yes and no. I knew we needed to set a higher standard. Man, when Apache Solutions first started, it started because I was wandering around aimlessly in this store. I don't know if you guys remember or not. I used to shop there, Walmart. And
they sent me an angry letter, by the way.
That dude.
They don't like me so much.
Yeah. So me and a friend were walking through Walmart, and there's this guy in front of me, and I love telling this story. And he's walking around, and his holster is bouncing around on his hip. It's this nylon thing that's barely strapped onto the side of his hip, and he's got this high point pistol sticking out of it, and it's barely hanging on, man. Like with every step he took, me and my buddy were like, clinging on to each other, like holding on for dear life. Like, oh no. And
you were safe. It's a high point. It wasn't.
Yeah, but I mean,
no rounds were going anywhere.
We pointed and laughed at this guy. I mean, obviously behind his back, not to his face. That'd be rude. And then, he followed us around the store, or we followed him around the store, whatever. And we made our way home, got to the house, went to the basement, cracked open a cold beer, sat down, and we were still talking about this guy. Like, he has no clue what he's doing. And it was that point where something just clicked, and I was like, man, when did I become such an arrogant asshole? Like, wouldn't it have been a lot more productive if I walked up to the dude with a business card and said, hey, man, you like to shoot? You should come out and train sometime.
Yep.
But I never interacted with that dude once. And that's where I realized, look, the standard is already way down here, man. We need to get them up here. If we want people in our society to really take us seriously as a gun community, we don't need to demean people and stuff like that and keep them down here. We need to set our standards high and help get them to that point, right? And do that through education. And that was the light bulb, man. That was what it clicked for me to say, hey, our community needs some education. We need to change it. And whatever we have going on right now for teaching folks, it ain't working. So it was when you show up to our class, and it was like, all right, this is what you know now, and this is what we know. We know how to the next step. We know how to move your level up to the next step, right? So it wasn't necessarily our standards were low. Our standards are still way, way up here. We just are not holding everybody to that standard just yet. We're gradually pushing them in that direction, right?
Right. So you're using them to find out where the starting point is.
Yep.
Perfect.
Awesome. So we
walked all around your question there.
No. That's fine.
We've got 1 million chat questions, literally 1 million, not 999,000, literally 1 million.
Nice.
So Sarah asked about, we've got an awesome super fan who does research on all of our peeps. So I don't know if this is like on your website somewhere, or if she looked up your DOD file or what. She's asking about your time in Haiti.
She's a bit of a.
Here we go.
She's a bit of a stalker, but we love her. It's all good.
No, we love her.
Seriously, real quick, Ken, if I could.
Do it.
Just so for those that don't know, Miss Albrecht is Sarah, one of the co-founders of Hold My Guns, a charitable or nonprofit organization that Kent and I both support. We've had them on the show before. Highly recommend you guys, if you haven't seen that podcast yet. Believe that was on my channel still. We're going to work on converting that over to the podcast here. But highly advise you guys to go check out that nonprofit. It's a fantastic organization, and we back it 100%. But with that being said, Kent is absolutely right. She is a super fan of ours and asked some of the best damn questions that I frankly have ever seen.
She's awesome.
Oh,
so somewhere publicly about you, it must say that you went to Haiti right after the hurricane.
No, yeah.
So what was that? You're like, no, man. What was that like? What was it like being there in the aftermath?
So our first deployment, we just did a MU, so a Marine Expeditionary Unit. I was on float for a little while, being 7 months and some change, and we went and visited different countries and that sort of thing, and came back home, and we were home for, God, man, I don't know the exact amount of time. I know we were back from leave for like 8 days total before we left for Haiti. We got a 48-hour notice saying, hey, pack up your stuff. You're going to Haiti. So, the hurricane had hit and that sort of thing. So pack up your stuff. You're getting back on the ship and going. So we were one of the first responders there. And, it was a wild experience, man. Like, so we took off on the ship and we got there close by. I remember this. We were right outside of Haiti. and we're on the ship. I was in my bunk and along with everybody else. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the inside of a naval ship, but the berthing is like really, really condensed. There's a little bitty coffin racks. And there was this huge trimmer on the ship. And everybody pulled their curtains aside and was like, did we just run aground? I'm like, I don't know, man. It sure felt like it. So we're all running around trying to figure out what happened. It literally felt like we had run aground. And come to find out, they ended up coming over the intercom saying, no, that was just a tremor or an aftershock or whatever from the earthquake. And there were several of those. We were on the ship for a little while. We ran ops, a few helicopter ops, I think, just delivering water, beans, and rice and that sort of thing to places where a lot of people really couldn't get to, really out there in the sticks, up there in the mountains and that sort of thing. And then in a short amount of time, we were staged on this beautiful beach right behind an old abandoned cat house. And yeah, no kidding. That's where our bivouac site was. They had concertina wire all the way around it and stuff. And our primary mission there was to hand out a bunch of water, beans, and rice and MREs and stuff like that to folks that are really hurting. Haiti was beautiful, man. It was absolutely gorgeous. If you could get past some of the smell and like some of the bad stuff, man. It was really cool, man. The people there were really awesome. I won't ever forget Mo and Moses and his son. We called him Little Mo. We lived in their backyard, basically, in their little house there, but they wouldn't sleep inside that house because they were afraid it was going to cave in on them. The earthquake had killed like his entire family, and it was just him and his son left. So his sisters, his brothers, his wife, everybody had died, but they were so happy to see us there. I mean, they were still like in good spirits and stuff. I mean, within reason, obviously. I think the biggest issue in our area were a lot of the thugs. And so we did a little beating up thugs and stuff like that. And in some places, we had to travel up and down mountains and really tight, narrow roads and stuff. It was quite the experience, man. It really was. We were there for like 3 or 4 months. I don't know. Something like that.
So,
Interesting.
So with that, to kind of piggyback off of that experience, and I'll be honest, while I'm sure the environment was unsettling, of course, responding to a natural disaster, I gotta tip my hat to you for the humanitarian missions, man. Those are some of the few missions that are still very, very rewarding. There's certainly worse deployments to be on. But with that experience in humanitarian aid, natural disaster relief, how did responding to or handling that situation, be it, and this is just kind of capitalizing on Sarah's question here, just the overall difficulty of the mission, the human behavior, the stuff that you experienced and witnessed, did that have any type of impact or influence on how you shaped your training courses?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it had a huge influence on me and for life in general, but mass crowds and stuff like that, dealing with people in mass crowds and starting to learn how to read body language really well. That type of thing. Really trying to preach about medical training, making sure that you know what you're doing and can at least stop some bleeding and that sort of thing. That type of thing has really influenced or has been influenced from Haiti and Afghanistan, but primarily Haiti, honestly. But yeah, definitely influenced.
So speaking of medical, one of our favorite medics, Mr. Chuck over here, has a question for you. And it's not about medical, it's about your PVC target holder that I believe Frank said was named after a midget or something. What's the scoop with this target holder? What's going on with this thing?
Moss, or midget on a stick. One of my students sent me a video where I'm terrible with names, man. Is it Mickey Shu? Carry trainer, Mickey.
Yeah.
How you pronounce his last name?
I was just saying, yeah. So we all felt good. I wasn't going to try to pronounce his last name either.
Gotcha. Anyhow, so in one of his videos, they had something similar. They had this giant target or giant pole, PVC pole, and a IDPA silhouette on the end of this stick. And this guy is holding it in front of this other guy and it's like bouncing and waving in the air and stuff like that. And I took one look at that thing and I was like, bet you I can make that a lot more sturdy. And then when me and my brother got to playing around with the engineering on it and did some counterweight and stuff like that, it turned out to be really, really cool moving target. So basically what this thing does, or what we can do with this, is show you how quickly a target can really, really approach you, and how important it is to be able to disengage from the situation in the best way you possibly can, as quickly as you can. Because essentially my legs become that target's legs, just at a 12-foot distance, right? So I'm standing behind the shooter or beside the shooter, and as I move, I'm basically the legs for the target. It was just a trial thing, man. We were just messing around with something, trying to figure it out. And obviously we didn't go straight to live fire or something like that. It started off with just nothing but finger guns, really. And just trying to see, hey, is this really going to work? And it turned out to be a really awesome asset for us.
Yeah, and for the love of God, for the safety Nazis that might be listening to this podcast,
I did not puzzle the internet,
and not familiar with what Tim is talking about. He is standing behind. It is essentially a remote target. The target is in front of the shooter, while the person holding said target is behind and out of the line of fire. Dear God,
so,
I could see the comments going, "You stand in front of the shooter."
Wait, hold on now.
No.
Never mind. I almost talk shit on other instructors, which I try never to do. I was going to say only so-and-so does that. But just to be clear, only 3 midgets were hurt in the making of this target.
Yeah, something like that. Nobody was hurt. We just called it midget on a stick because when you lay it down, it was just this little IDPA silhouette standing up, with, just right there on the ground. We called it midget on a stick. I don't know.
Tomorrow, somewhere on Kickstarter, there will be short person on a pole, Targets Incorporated.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Some dude will be at SHOT Show next year going, "This is my idea." And he'll be
still. Now, hey, it wasn't my idea either. All I did was put some handles on the thing, added a counterweight, and that was it. And
nothing's anybody's idea until it's on Kickstarter.
There you go.
All right.
Just so redneck engineering, I guess.
So in the theme of awesome chat questions that are well backed up at this point, somebody mentioned, "Oh, dude, you are on fire with the chat questions. Chat loves you."
Sweet.
There was mention of a refund guarantee. Somewhere on your website, you've got a refund guarantee if people aren't happy.
Yes, sir.
I will caveat this and say that there are some lesser reputable instructors who do that and then bully people out of their refund. We've all heard of that. I'm very certain that's not what Tim's got going on. He means it. Whatever he's got on his website. I didn't read that, by the way. Somebody in chat did. But like, if he says there's a refund guarantee, there's an effing refund guarantee. So yeah. I don't want to hear about that either. Anyway, go ahead. Hit me. I'm sorry.
Man, it's as simple as it sounds. Really, there's not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to that, other than we believe in what we teach. It's not just something we pulled up out of a hat and said all of a sudden, we're going to turn you into John Wick, and by the end of class you're going to be good. It's practical, man. It's practical, and it's proven stuff that we teach, and it's not just for what we teach, it's how we teach, who we are. If for some reason you show up to class and you just don't jive well, and this is not what you were looking for, it's 100% money back guarantee. And the reason why we did that, we did that from the very beginning, when we first started this. And the reason why is because there was a lot of people who were really skeptical about coming out to a 1 hour session. Well, what are you going to teach me in an hour, dude? Really? I mean, in an hour? Well, in an hour, you're going to be drinking from a fire hose if I really want to, man. Like, I can teach you a ton of stuff in an hour. Hours are a really long time, especially when you have a really slim baseline to go off of. So it was hey, come out. If you take this 1 hour session, you don't pay me until the session is over with. And you give me that full hour of your undivided attention. And if you're not happy at the end of the day, don't pay me. Don't pay me. I want you to be satisfied with it. I want you to have come here to achieve what you're looking for. And it's not what you're looking for. It's probably not what I want to teach. So that's it, man.
Awesome. Really cool. What about common mistakes that you see more experienced shooters making? Again, a chat question.
Say it one more time.
Common mistakes that more experienced shooters make.
More experienced shooters. Yes. Man, I try to I don't know, when I'm judging somebody's experience level, I guess I don't go off of what their training record looks like as much as I'm judging them on how safe they are with a handgun. Can they perform to a specific level and still be safe, and still not do something stupid with their handgun? I think the more experienced shooters, their biggest issue is they're not diversifying. So they either get stuck behind the handgun and they don't get enough medical, or they get stuck behind the handgun and they don't get enough hands-on, or they get stuck behind A, B, or C and they don't diversify. They don't get out of their comfort zone. And that's what I find the most. I say here's a really good example. I was one of these experienced shooters. Being a Marine and in the infantry, I have quite a bit around, a lot of rounds downrange, right? I've spent a lot of time behind a rifle. And when I got out, it was in my head that I knew what I was doing with a handgun. I mean, I was a third award expert with a handgun in the Marine Corps. And I didn't realize until I met Dave just how much that didn't make a damn bit of difference. I seriously did not know what I was doing. So I think it was the Dunning-Kruger effect, man. I didn't know I didn't know what I didn't know, so that's probably what I run into the most with experienced shooters is they think they've got it figured out. They think they do until somebody tells them and shows them otherwise. Does that answer the question? And is there whiskey in that?
There is whiskey.
Okay.
Sure. The Dunning-Kruger Firearms Academy is my least favorite gun training school, by the way. If you've never been, don't go. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we were all bitten by that at one time or another. And it's nice to –
I was, man.
A common theme, right, amongst those of us who take this shit seriously is we all had that moment where we're like, ruh-roh, Raggy. As it turns out, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. So
it's a strong man for veterans. And look, I'm telling you right now, if you're watching and you're saying it didn't happen to you, you're lying. Period.
Yeah.
Don't lie to yourself. You've either had to swallow this pill or you're going to have to swallow this pill. When you get out, you're lacking a ton of things. It's not the same fight anymore. You're not training the same way. You have to take what you learn from the military. That's great and everything, but that's only a small piece of what you're going to need and to be able to apply that to your everyday armed citizen. It's a huge wake up call, man. Once you venture out and realize just how much you don't know.
Yeah. There's all kind of shit I don't know. It's really a scary, scary long list when you really think about it. Medical's huge.
There's so much we don't know. We don't know what we don't know.
It hurts. It really just hurts. TJ, what do you got, man? You're over there brewing up some good questions.
Dude, you're talking about, you guys talk about all these training scars and just mistakes that people make. And I'm sitting here every time I post a video or every time I record myself and go and just watch the playback. I'm like, oh, Jesus, you're such a bonehead. Yeah. Stop doing that. So, Tim, I wanted to ask a little bit more about your training philosophy, so to speak. So we can see right off the bat that your slogan is "Train like a warrior." Mm-hmm. So, kind of a two-part question here. So, one, what does training like a warrior mean to you, and does training like a warrior apply completely when it comes to civilian everyday carry concepts?
Yeah, absolutely. So training like a warrior for me is like training for your individual fight, right? And having that mindset to never give up and really working hard to achieve a specific goal. Too often people say, hey, man, I'm going out and I'm training this weekend. Well, what are you training? Really, what are you training? Well, I'm going to go shoot my handgun and draw from the holster a couple of times, and I'm going to do this. And what are you doing? Like, have you established any type of goal here? Because I get that. I guess that kind of mentality from what I did in the military. If we trained, we had a specific goal in mind. You had a mission. Everything was written out. You had this great big order of how you were going to do everything you do. And when I see somebody go to the range or something like that, they don't have a real mission. They're calling it training, and what they're really doing is plinking. Not taking anything away from plinking, because I like to do that too. But they didn't have any kind of real guidance. So, and training for their individual fight. You as an everyday armed citizen don't need to be training with I'm not saying ever, but you don't need to be training all the time in your full, get up or in your John Wick suit. You need to be dressed as you would normally carry every day. And I can't stress that enough, man. Some people just don't get it. They'll still show up and they'll carry on a holster that they never carry in public, or they'll run a gun that they never carry in public. I'm all the time. I train for your fight. I train for how you're going to end up having to draw that gun from a holster, not how you're imagining in your head, or not what makes you look cooler on Instagram. Train for your fight. And what was the other one? The other thing I said, the never give up mindset, right? I think that's the most important, of being able to push yourself to a whole nother level and realize that you can achieve some of these goals that you didn't realize you couldn't achieve before, or whatever. And really developing that confidence to carry in public. So that's what it means to me to train like a warrior. And the second part of your question?
No, I think you kind of answered it. So, so the second question was, just to reiterate, was, how does that apply to, everyday carry in the civilian world, right? And I say that for a couple of reasons. There seems to be a stigma against trainers, or for lack of a better term, against many trainers, especially ex-military guys, where, we throw around a lot of words like warrior and, train like you fight, all these military isms that have kind of spilled over into the training community. And understandably, albeit mistakenly, those can kind of be conflated with the warrior mindset and the attitude for addressing a particular, for lack of a better term, combat situation where you actually have to employ a firearm, as opposed to train like a warrior is, as you said, turn you into John Wick at the end of a 1 hour session. So that's that's primarily why I kind of steers you down that rabbit hole. So also looking at your philosophy of training, you've got three tenets posted right here on your website, and that's skill set, responsibility, and confidence. So I'm curious, with all the different tenets and corporate buzzwords that people can throw into a training company, why did you settle on those three tenets, at least to the point that they're published on a headline on your website?
Oh man, I just Googled them and I said they look cool. Stick here.
Hey, you laugh. That is a 100% acceptable answer for getting I'm just saying.
Right on. So no, the skill set first, man. Skill set. To me, that it's really important to be able to master that basic level first, no matter where you're at as a shooter. That is where you really need to begin with, with a gun school. Whether you're coming to Apache or you're going to train with Kent, you need to start off at this basic level. You don't need to take Kent's, advanced Daniel Defense rifle combatives course that he's got going on. Or
no, you do not. No, sir, you do not.
No. You don't need to start off taking that. You don't need to jump straight into my everyday carry course. You need to really see what I'm talking about and learn what my baseline is, basically, and then develop those skill sets you need in order to be, the shooter that you need to be, or the armed citizen that you need to be. The armed citizen. I'm sorry, I just blinked out there for a minute.
It's okay. Marine flashing lights, we get it.
Yeah. The responsibility thing is the man, that just completely threw me for a loop.
See, I told you.
Yeah, it happened.
Somebody hit the reset button on Tim.
So the responsibility thing is, what are you responsible for, right? Like, are you an everyday armed citizen, or are you military? Are you a Leo? What are you? And man, that little blank just threw me for a loop.
No, it's
all right. So since you just hit Control Alt Delete and I heard the Windows sound, bing bong bong.
Yeah.
I'll turn you back on here. The dudes in chat are saying that you haze people mercilessly in class.
Terribly.
Is this true?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
awesome.
I don't haze my students.
It's called indoctrination, Kent. Come on, get on board here.
So I'll be fair. Hold on. Let me not set you up for total failure on that one. So the question was asked: how do we recognize and combat Dunning-Kruger in students early on? And your boy Frank jumped right in and said we haze the shit out of them.
Of course.
Right? So
you would say that, Frank.
So besides that, when you see a student, and we've gone down a long diatribe of the training path and how this has made us better people and all that kind of stuff, but you get that dude that comes to class and he's just here because his buddy said so, or he's just here because I fucking showed up some night and he liked the way I shot or whatever, but he's been doing this his whole life and he's not sure if he needs you or not, and that's what he leads with. I'm speaking from experience on this. I know you are. And you get that dude that says, well, I'm not sure if I need this, but I'm going to give you a shot. Right.
Yeah.
How do you curtail that in them early on and set the level right away so that there's a good learning environment as opposed to not?
Easy, man. I mean, it's just like I said a while ago, start them off at the basic skill level, because that's generally where you're going to see it. That is right. Just throw a dummy round in their gun or something like that and watch them just go to town on that handgun. Not just, I'm not talking about just that little muscle flinch or anything like that, but they're just like, they just go nuts with it. Right. That's usually where you figure it out, and that's back to the hazing thing, right? Where Frank gets that. Um, for instance, something as simple as just anticipating recoil. Somebody that's making a habit out of it is somebody that's really just going too fast, and they're just shooting way too fast for the drill that we might be running or something like that. And I'm trying to get them to slow down or something, and they're still anticipating recoil. So basically what I'll have them do is completely unload their gun and do like 10 nice, slow, steady dry fire reps. Go back, load your gun up live, do it again. And then if we catch you anticipating again, do the same thing. And that's what he's referring to as hazing. Of just trying to get them in that mindset of, all right, slow down. I'm not trying to impress anybody here. I need to get this down and go from there.
Yeah. I agree. I would simply add that personality has a lot to do with this, right? And the more we as this, I'm not telling you this, I'm just telling the gun community at large and whoever hears this, the better of a job we do not pounding our chest and saying, shut up, I'm awesome, listen to me, right? And the better job we do as salespeople. One of my professional career outside the gun world is fucking sales, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't do a good enough job saying, hey, here's what I think I can help, here's how we can benefit, here's what we believe we can do, here's what we've been able to do for others. You do a great job of this. You do something that I wish I did more of, which is you get more cameras around the courses, and you've got a lot of, I've got a range bag and a camera bag, and the two very often don't mix. So, I'm, from years of my conversation, I need to be better on that, just as an example of showing people what they can expect for real. But we need to do a better job.
Having a camera on a student has been great. I mean, it really does. Yep. It helps you as the instructor to go back and look at your students and really, really get to know who they are. And I just reminded me of a student a while back. We just had
was it Joe America?
No, it wasn't Joe America.
Okay, because Joe America's on here.
Get off of here.
Joe America's in the chat. I don't know what to tell you.
Is that right? Okay. But the camera is great, man. I mean, because you can go back and look at the student, study them, and see where they're really, because you may not see it right then and there, but you can go back at a different camera angle or something like that and be like, oh man, he is like milking the crap out of that grip. Or, oh man, he's, moving his head all around, all over the place when he's drawing from a holster. Or, oh man, he's doing this or doing that. Stuff that you can't see. Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we can't see as instructors. We can't see how much pressure they're putting in their hands and how much, their sights are. You can't see if their sights are aligned. You can't see all these things. And the camera does a great job of being able to go back and see some of those things. It also, I think, psychologically, it is a great thing for them. What I like to do is I put all of my students, well, mainly my alumni students, I put them all into these little folders on a Google Drive. I try to put all their videos inside there, and I share it to them privately, so they have a way to watch their progress. And man, it's awesome to see some of my students that, like Ryan O'Keefe from back in 2017 when he first started training out here. He can watch himself from 2017, and he's been training with me for 2 hours a week since then. And he can go back and see just how much he has progressed as a shooter. And man, it's pretty awesome. Like it's really cool to see that kind of progress. And I think that's really helping that student. Like, I need to keep this up, because it's like watching your gains in the gym or something. I don't know. But yeah.
I find that having a YouTube channel is also very good for looking back to 5 years ago and realizing how much you sucked. It's quite helpful for me, believe me. So we've had, like, as we've been discussing all this like software shit, the dudes are over here talking hardware a little bit. So Adventure Camping basically said, how important is gear? And then they've had like a Frank has answered 9 million questions, and it's all good. But
thanks, Frank.
Just real quick, give us a give us a overview on your opinion on gear and I'm gonna like dovetail you into everyday carry civilian person, right? Because the two of you can talk all day about what you put in your bivouac or whatever the hell. I don't even know what a bivouac is, but like
it's a camping trip, but less fun.
Okay, y'all can talk about your camping trips with men. I'll leave that alone. But for the everyday dude walking around on the street, what is he or even she? What do you think they need to have on them, and what's the right gear to be training with? All that.
So we preach quality, man. Quality training, quality representation, quality gear, and a quality gunsmith. Those are the main things that we try and push in our students' general direction. And quality gear looks like quality, man. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I can't just drive you to say, hey, Safari Land is the only way to go, because Safari Land may not work for you and for your specific application. Or Bravo Concealment is the only way to go. It might not work for you, but both are pretty reputable companies, and I like their stuff. Nate Squared Tactical is a shout out to you guys. Nate Squared Tactical is a company based out of Lexington, North Carolina. They've got some really, really good holsters. I met up with the guys. They're awesome group of people, and I've used their holsters for a long time, and they're good quality gear. They're comfortable. So for anybody that's just getting into carrying, it's the easiest holster to put on, period. It's one of the easiest things to ever carry with. But Nate's got some downsides. They don't have a whole lot of light holsters. They don't have a holster that's going to work for a light or for an optic. So you've got to venture out and find different quality gear. So without going through and name dropping a whole bunch of different, a whole bunch of different hardware and stuff like that, do your research, man. Do your research. Find people that know what they're talking about and ask around. I'm not saying just go to a forum or something like that or Google it on the internet. No, find somebody that knows what they're talking about. Check out the gear that you're looking into. Read the reviews. It means a lot. All right. See how long they've been in business, so on and so forth, and how many people that actually carry their holster, and make up your own mind on what you want to carry. But make sure it's good quality gear. That little, if it's, man, this is just my opinion. If it's nylon, no, just get rid of it, man. Nylon, the little flappy thing that hooks on the outside of your pants that's about to fall off, like I caught that one dude in Walmart. No, that's not quality. So learn what quality looks like, and I guess the only way to do that is by going to train, man. Like, go be around people that know what they're doing, and I mean that's the best way to find out what quality looks like.
Yeah.
I'd like to chime in on the quality aspect, especially when we're talking about holsters. What I have found, and Tim, feel free to let me know if you agree or disagree with this, but generally I have found that if you are purchasing a holster off the shelf, you can find good stuff. You can. Just like I can walk out into the street and get hit by a bus. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. So what I have found, because those of us that would fall into the category of gun guy, we have that proverbial drawer full of holsters, right? Every quality holster that I have come across has been boutique or made to order or available online only. You're not going to find it in store shelves. I will say, with the exception of Bravo Concealment, because you do occasionally find them in a gun store somewhere, but like big box stores, camping and hunting equipment stores, you're probably not going to find it there. So,
yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, for the most part, absolutely. the chances of you going and finding this cookie cutter Kydex holster and slapping it on and it being the best thing since sliced bread is probably not going to happen unless you don't know what you're talking about. Right. I mean, that's a big play. Because when we notice that a lot in our everyday carry course, because that's really what the everyday carry course is about is, hey man, how does your gear work for you? Like, show up the way you would normally carry and let's see what we can tune up or see what stuff needs to go, see what needs to change. And you see guys, they'll show up and they've got this cookie cutter Kydex holster and it's getting caught on their shirt every time. These little, not rounded off jagged edges on there because it's cheap quality, man. Or, or the hybrid ones or whatever that might just actually separate from the Kydex. There's all kinds of stuff that would, that you can buy off the shelf that's just absolute garbage. That's why I said Nate Squared is one of those that I would say is probably one of the only ones, them, Bravo Concealment, probably the only ones I'd say that I can think of off the top of my head that you can go into a store, pull it off the shelf and rock it and it worked great. And you don't have to worry about it not being quality.
Right. Yeah. And this is going to suck for some people to hear, but if you look at the price of the holster and go, holy shit, that's probably a quality holster.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you know what? And same goes for training. Same goes for representation. Same goes for your gear. Same goes for your gunsmith. If it's what is it? My gunsmith says cheap work ain't good and good work ain't cheap.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like there's another adage. It's just because I did the job in 15 minutes doesn't mean that I did a bad job. It means that I spent years acquiring the skills to do that job in 15 minutes. You're not paying me for the minutes. You're paying me for the years.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing. And I do have to say this, while you could easily go down the rabbit hole of, price gouging, people being overly proud of their equipment. I will say that is generally not too common when it comes to, quality holster makers and gunsmiths. They usually price themselves very, very well in accordance with the quality of the work and the craftsmanship. And with that, if they are doing the opposite and they're just, oh, well, this expert gunsmith over here is charging $150 an hour. Me with my, I've been a gunsmith since breakfast tag, I'm going to charge $150 an hour too. The gun community is really good about eating its own. And that person will be identified as a fraud and he'll either change his prices accordingly or he just won't get any attention.
Yeah. That's what I noticed for a brief, when I got out, I got a mechanical engineering degree and started down the route of learning I wanted to learn how to design and manufacture my own line of firearms. That was the route I wanted to go. So I did a little internship and stuff and worked at a place. And that was definitely an experience. I learned that the people that we would want to deal with, there was a lot of snakes in the industry, man, a lot of snakes. And it wasn't and you don't see it as much. I will say, I really don't think you see it as much in the training community. I don't think you see it as much. But I think a big part of it, man, is when I first started training, I didn't know what to price my stuff at. I didn't know how to price a one-on-one session. How much should I pay somebody? And I had basically the way I did it, I'd get a crew of people together, of people that I trusted. And by trust, mean I know they'd tell me if I sucked. I knew they'd tell me if I was good. I knew they were going to tell me the truth. So I basically had probably 5 or 10 people, come out, and I would let them assume how much do you think this session, is worth? And I just kind of took an average, and that's how I got started out. And I didn't really know how it was going to work, how well it was going to work, but it turned out working really well. You have that one guy that'll show up to a session and is like, really, man, that's it? That's all it costs? Yeah, man. and it actually gets cheaper once you become an alumni student, and you have that other guy that's like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me, for an hour? Yeah, for an hour. And they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay the money, but they will go home and, bub out one of their guns and really put all kinds of money towards making this thing look all kind of Gucci fantastic, but they won't spend a dime on training, So I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a little tangent.
Bro, seriously, fucking preach. This is my biggest. You just lit the fire, man. Every fucking time, it's always that dude. Yeti, Cryptek, Super Duper, Awesome, Cerakote, Durablast. I don't give a free frosty fuck. I'm so sick of these dudes pulling out like the Wizard Fantastic Awesome stick. And I'm like, all right, dude, this drill's called the test. 10 yards, 10 rounds, 10 seconds, black of a B8. Shooter ready, stand by, beep. No, I said the black. That's that thing in the middle. Like, come on, homeboy, where you at? You got a $2,000 gun.
Supposed to do it for me, though.
Right,
right. I put all the money into it, so it'll do it for me, just like this thing right here.
It's not chambered in Patriot missile, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Man, we get so wrapped up in this, like just this push of a button, and everything is so simple, and this fixes everything. No,
right.
It's not how it works, man.
Hey, I'm a level 40 on Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
all I know is that my man showed up to the range with so much flinch dialed into his red dot that I didn't know that shit could go that high and that far left. I was like, bro, I can't even. The dot is sunk below the sights. What are we doing? It's like that. I don't know. That's on for me. And damn it was. And I shot the thing, and I was like, you have just consistently burned this flinch into your soul to the point where it's just always.
I'm sorry. I think what was it, Caddyshack, where the guy had like the worst slice on the planet, and they had him turn around and face the crowd.
Yeah,
to drive the ball towards the pin. Yeah.
Oh God.
Good Lord.
So
red dots are a crutch.
Well, there's a lot of shit that's a crutch.
Well, you're the exception, Kent. You're blind.
I am, dude. I am so blind. Tim, what you don't know is the time we spent on the range together, I had Dave telling me which direction the targets were. He was like, no, turn that way. They're over there. I'm blinded and shit. So, dude, your boy Frank, you got to come on the show. We'll do Apache 2.0 and we'll bring Frank on because you're effing hilarious.
That's great. Hey, he's by the way, he's so much better than this, or better at this type of thing than me.
He's so much better than this.
He helped me set all this stuff up, man.
Oh, nice. Is he in the building? Is Frank in the building with you somewhere?
Frank is not in the building. Okay. He said he was. Frank, don't ever do that again.
Okay. So he said something about a lady's carry purse and heels look real good on you. Wanted to let you know that.
Now he's just talking smack.
Yeah, no, he's just talking some mad smack. All right, here's a good question from the chat. Surprisingly, not surprisingly, from Sarah. What are some tips for giving constructive criticism to students?
Oh man, that's an excellent question. I try to be funny, man. I mean, I don't think of myself as just an absolutely hilarious dude, but I try to contribute as much humor as I possibly can on the range. And the more of a relationship you build with a student in that fashion, I find they tend to loosen up a little bit. They're not as nervous. They're not freaking out as much. And you start to build some kind of ground where you can say, hey, maybe you should try this, right? Constructive criticism, man, it's as simple as just being polite as best as you possibly can. The NRA uses PIP, right? Give them a positive, give them room for improvement, give them another positive. That
compliment sandwich.
Compliment sandwich, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That does work sometimes. It's great. But sometimes you actually have to sit down and be real with somebody. Like, hey, man, this gun does not work for you. Like, this does not fit you. You cannot reach all the controls. And this is why. Look, the best way to give any type of criticism whatsoever is to back it up with why. And it needs to be logical. You need to have some meat behind that why. You can't just say, well, you're doing this wrong because I said so. Or watch me do it, or something like that. Sometimes watch me do it works great, and sometimes it doesn't. You've got to really learn how to just be tactful with somebody. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the being real, the overall overarching theme of everybody who's worth a damn in this business, right, is being real with people.
Yeah.
And we all have everybody's got a different stroke on how they handle it, but you're absolutely right, man. Some shit doesn't work for some people. Everybody's an individual. The days of 30 dudes on the line and one famous guy with a bullhorn yelling drills, right? Like, I hope that shit's over. I really, really do, because it never. I mean, we've been there, done that, right? Like, and I'm, we're not here to throw names or whatever, but when you can sit across from a guy or a girl and maybe break out some water, maybe it's snack time or whatever it is, and you sit down and you go, so let me be real honest with you. I don't think what you're doing is working. And it's not a technique thing. It could be anything from a carry location to a caliber choice to a gun choice to a mindset, whatever it might be. You'll pick up where the person's about to go over the cliff. And if you don't catch them, down they go, and 2 weekends from now, they'll be out playing golf or doing some other shit. Right.
Yeah.
And obviously this is not that this isn't a fun hobby, but there's more to this than that. So we want to catch them before they go over the cliff. That's one of my favorite takes on it.
I think a really good way to go about doing that is I try not to teach people what they're doing wrong. Right? Teaching people what they're doing wrong, this is just going to be repetitive, man. You're going to be doing this over and over and over and over and over again. Start teaching them how to teach themselves when they're doing it wrong. So how to recognize when they're screwing up. All right. If I tell you, hey man, you're doing this, or hey man, you're doing that. If I continue to do that over and over and over again, and I'm not backing it up with some kind of reason, and I'm not slowing them down to a point where they're recognizing when they're doing it, I have them like vocally, hey man, tell me when you realize you're doing this. And then they'll come back with, all right, yeah, I see that. I just totally screwed that up. When they recognize where they're failing, that's when you're doing your job as an instructor. When they recognize what they're doing wrong, because when they recognize it, they can do it. They can go home in their practice and work on that. Otherwise, they don't have, the teacher next to them saying, you're doing that wrong. You're doing that wrong. You're doing that wrong. So they're going to continue to do it wrong. Right.
Yeah. Negative versus positive reinforcement. Adult learning theory is a thing, folks.
Oh man.
We could dive into that for the next
a lot of time on that
hour and a half, right? But at the end of the day, we're teaching people how to do something that is not an innate skill for them, right? Yeah. There are things about it that are innate, like being threat focused and wanting to not die, right? But there are many things about it that are not innate. And, there's not too many other times in our lives where we hold a piece of polymer between our two mitts and have, 26,000 PSI go ka-ching right in the middle of them, right? Like, that's not normal. That doesn't happen to people in their everyday lives. So we're pushing we just sailed right past the hour mark because F it, we were having a good conversation and chat's on fire.
It's our show. We do what we want.
We do what we want. So we really enjoyed that. I want to do one more thing tonight, and then I want to give you all the time that you need to make sure that you get your plugs in, make sure people know what they can expect and where they can find you. But before we do that, and I think we're going to have to close every show like this for the next fucking 20 years, I'm afraid. We're going to talk about our rights and what we can do as ambassadors of the gun community and the training community to further those rights, to not have them eroded away, and to be better stewards Jesus Christ, I sound like a freaking commercial for the, Amazon Club or something. To be better stewards for the gun community at large, right? Like, I should work for the Sierra Club. I really should. My name should be on a mug.
It's pretty good, man.
But what do you corporately at Apache, or just Tim in his everyday life as a gun guy, what do you think we can do better, and what do you think we're doing a real good job at in the rights department?
I think for the most part, let's talk about what we're doing right. For the most part, we're backing each other in the education, on the education side of things. There's a lot of really, really good organizations out there that are desperately trying to reach out to not the gun community, but the communities in general, and just reach out to the community and say, hey, you don't know anything about a gun. Let me teach you about them, and I think that's really the approach that we need to be making, is having good quality education and in our communities around firearms, and really getting rid of that, this stigma that, we talked about this before, this, if you're into guns or whatever, you're a bad person, and try to, I don't know, really just try to educate the public. I think that is the best way to do it. If we continue to focus on things that really are not getting us anywhere, then we're not going to get anywhere, right? Education is key. What we're doing wrong, my biggest thing is talking down on folks. Like where I started out in the very beginning, bashing folks, dumbing people down, kicking them because of certain concept that they're teaching or something like that, instead of tactfully being able to give somebody advice. Let's face it, though, like there's some people just don't have a tactful bone in their body. Like they don't know how to be polite. Work on it, man. Look, you practice. You're working on your rifle skills right now because it's something that's been challenging for you. Well, work on it, man. I mean, I think we need to be better people altogether and really try and help folks. I mean, until we really come together as a gun community and stop tearing each other apart, we're not going to get very far.
No, you're absolutely right, and I make fun of myself a little more than I should. I can be tactful when I have to. As a perfect example, a bunch of us were just recently at a hearing here in Pennsylvania. Shockingly, they're coming to take our guns, as it turns out, which they've always been doing. But one of the things I noticed was that this sucks to say on the air. And you know what? If you were there standing next to me and you think this applies to you, I really hope it doesn't. And I want you to reach out and I want to help. But there were a lot of people standing outside that Capitol building who I was not super thrilled to be associated with for various reasons.
Yeah.
The way you set up your gear, that's something I'm going to notice. And maybe, the average senator or staffer walking past you would not. The way you conduct yourselves, the way you dress, the way you show your appearance, the way we should not have to barter and beg and fight for these rights.
That's right.
Let me be clear about that. You ought to be able to show up in your fucking bathrobe and speak to your senator. They work for you, right? The truth of the matter is that's not the world that these people operate in. And sometimes I don't believe we do as good a job representing ourselves as we could.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to take away from all the awesome work that was done on the inside of that room with, real legit attorneys and people with legal backgrounds and mental health knowledge. And, we brought the A-team to the inside. And we did a great job of that. But on the outside, sometimes I had to look around and think, y'all, we can do better.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
that's all.
Raise the standard, man.
It's exactly right. Raising the standard. So I spent my afternoon on the second day just walking around and talking to those cats and those guys and girls out there. And, we conducted interviews. We put some stuff up on social media. We may or may not put the rest up, but, people from all walks of life are into this. And another thing I think we really need to do a better job of is not, if you still think 2A is about old rich white dudes. I don't even know what to say anymore. Hell, there's 3 of us on here. None of us are rich, or old, right? Yeah. But ladies, minorities, the whole nine. Like, every Thursday night, I'm amazed to see who shows up to the range and thrilled about it, quite honestly. So that's something I think we could do better. Anyway, you've been an awesome guest. You brought the freaking hammer into the chat. You brought all your minions with you. So that's
every single one of you better subscribe to.
Oh yeah, subscribe to him and us and everywhere. Those dudes are awesome in the chat, and it's actually been a really nice, productive conversation over there, which we always love to see. So thank you for that. All of you that are out in the chat, we appreciate you. What do you got for us, man? Where can people find you? Where should they be subbed? What do you got coming up? Tell us the coolest news, and we'll get out of here.
Man, we've got all kinds of things coming up. Awesome, exciting stuff. So we're hosting our first Handgun Combatives Kinetic Combat Pistol course at Virtue of Defense Tactical. That's vodtactraining.com. I'm pretty sure it's the website. And that is November 16th and 17th. You can sign up now. Just make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, at Apache Solutions LLC, or at VOD Tactical, VOD Tactical. And you can get the link on there. So that's the next class, the next course we have coming up for Handgun Combatives. And then we're planning to host, they're planning to host us 3 more times next year. We're also hoping to do a little bit more venturing out next year and traveling around. And once we get through some of these hoops that we're jumping through right now, I think you'll really, really be excited to see the new schedule coming up. So check us out on ApacheSolutionsLLC.com. That's our current website. Hopefully we'll have the new one kicking off real soon. Yeah, everything else, all the other contact information should be there on the website or on FaceSpace.
Really cool. So that's at Apache Solutions. LLC. Tim, you are – oh, yeah, throwing the LLC there. You are the man. Thank you so much for coming out here. I'm going to make it a point within the next year to be on the range with you again somewhere, somehow. Even if I got to host you to get you up here, we'll talk about that off air. But we gotta do something. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much. TJ, you want to have the last word and shut us down?
Absolutely. Tim, thank you for joining us this evening. We're happy to help you. You have a standing invitation. Anytime you want to come back on the channel, please let us know. We would be delighted to have you and your crew of miscreants join us in the chat. Those of you in the chat, thank you guys for participating and sending in your questions. They were fantastic. To date, probably the most active chat that we've had on the channel. I know Kent and I truly appreciate it. Also appreciate if you'd subscribe to this channel, the Sling'N Led podcast. Also, while you're at it, subscribe to Kent's channel, Green Mountain Defense, and my channel, Lead, Sling, and Ginger, right here on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Links, as always, are in the description below. Also, for the month of October, Kent and I have a discount code for the Wisconsin Trigger Company. Discount code Sling'N Led, SLING N space lead will get you 10% off when you shop at the Wisconsin Trigger Company. We'll put a link in the description for that as well. Until next time, everybody, thank you all. God bless you. And until we see each other again, get out and shoot.